Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Strong Collectors Podcast. I'm your host, Dakota, joined with my co host, Jordan. And today we have brought on the assembled Avengers of Protecting Comic Books, the creators of Comic Capsules. We have Jeff, Lawrence, and Andrew. So you've probably seen us doing some giveaways, and they've kindly sponsored several episodes of the podcast. So now we're going to get to do a deep dive into Comic Capsules. You've probably seen our in-hand reviews, kind of our thoughts, but now we get to ask the questions directly to the top brass. So how are you guys doing tonight? And I'll kind of let you go one at a time. Let's start out with Lawrence. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do for Comic Capsules?
Yeah, I'm a co-founder. I with Andrew and a couple other our friends. We I'm just sort of like the acting president, but really I'm just another one of the guys and gals trying to help and just give us the comic community something different in terms of collecting. Andrew and I and the team were like, we just didn't like what we had in the market, so we decided to create something unique, and so that's why we came up with the comic capsule. And with that, I'll turn it to Andrew.
Hey guys, Andrew Louis here. I have a background in finance, and I've been collecting for over 40 years now. And I've just seen the whole industry evolve and devolve, and um, just the we've only had choices of really bag and board for decades. And I just thought, hey, some of my comics are worth a little more than $1 or $2, whatever. And I thought that there was just a huge disparity between bag and board and encapsulation in terms of investment. And there's that sweet spot in between that I think that we hit with the comic capsule. And apparently other people think so as well, because people like them. So,
Yeah.
and now I'll pass it to Jeff.
Hey, I'm Jeff McCain, and like I said, well, not like I said, but like Lawrence said, uh, I'm just a huge fan of the product. And when I saw that both Lawrence and Andrew were a part of it, I just had to be a part because I've had too many horror stories with top loaders. So had literally a whole short box crash on me and break open and fly across the ground. So when I saw this and saw the technology that's put into it, with the UV, all that, and you know, I know with any room you're gonna have light, so to protect it. And while I don't have anything super expensive, I mean, all of my stuff, I'm in it because I love art in general. So I just wanted to be a part of it, and they said, "Hey, why don't you help us do this and help us develop not only con strategy, because I try to go to as many cons as I can. Being in the Southwest area, I have a little more access than some areas of the state. So, and then also just helping get the product into LCSs. So, and one of my local LCSs was actually one of the first ones. I was like, "You guys got to see this. This stuff's great." And they were like, "This is the best thing I've ever seen." Like it's, a top loader on steroids, basically. So
Very cool.
that's it.
LCS, I'm assuming, is a local comic book store. Nice. Okay. I'll
Yes.
Yes.
just put like a note in the bottom of that for, okay,
Yeah.
cool. I thought that's what it was, but I want to make sure that it wasn't something else.
No, you're
Um,
good. You're good. Yeah.
all right. So, something we usually ask all of the interview folks that we bring on is, what are you currently collecting? Like, is it just comic books? Do you do statues, action figures? What are you currently hunting? And then what kind of got you into collecting? So, if we're going to go one at a time or jump in, whoever wants to go first.
Jeff, why don't you start, and we'll go backwards from
Okay.
there, and we'll alternate who
All
starts.
right. I mean, I'm it's always a joke and I don't have a problem with it. I'm a DC guy. Like I've been a Batman fan my whole life, but I also like the indies. I mean, there's uh, something that I would love to have. One of my favorite characters is Marvel wise is the uh Black Panther. So I would love to have a you know uh Fantastic Four 52, the first appearance, but
Yeah.
that's going to be one that takes a little longer.
Sure.
But I've collected stuff my whole life. I mean, I have, sports memorabilia that, I have a Sandy Koufax autographed baseball, and it's just always something, and just the art nowadays. Like, I'm a huge fan of a lot of the overseas artists. One of my favorite, or I should say one of my favorite companies is Scott's Collectibles, and I'll be a fan of them forever, because I know Lawrence and Andrew can both attest to this. Like, out of a majority of the companies that have artists underneath them, like Scott's, it starts with the owner and down through all the artists. They're all amazing. They're all nice. Like, even if you're just going up with one book, 10 books, whatever it is, they're always nice. I would like to get into more original art, but you know, it's also a little more expensive. So,
Sure.
Hey, but that's pretty much me.
Okay.
So,
And then as we go through, kind of another tag on question to that, like, what is the most valuable comic you have, whether it's graded or not graded, or
Ooh. Or I'd also
uh,
hear your favorite as
true.
well.
so probably, well, my favorite and probably my most expensive one. Well, I will say that a book that everybody can get, because I have a couple sketch covers, like a Alan Qua Batman. I would say that's probably my favorite, just because it's a personal.
Mhm.
But is the Batman 608, the Jim Lee Batman. So second print, and I think it's, well, give or take depending on the market. It's around 800 or 1,000, but
Is that the one where he's on
it's
the
triple signed.
gargoyle?
Yep,
Jeff? Okay.
yep,
Yeah. That's
yep.
a great
That
picture. That's a
Yeah,
great
and
cover.
other ones, I have other ones that like mean more. Like I said, the original art. I have another one that's kind of cool. It's Mitch Gerard's and Tom King, where they both one drew Batman and one drew Joker, and Tom King's hideous drawings, but it's still hilarious. Like, I love it.
Very
That's
cool.
my first graded comic I ever had.
Nice.
So, there's different ones that mean different, but may not be as much, but still, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So,
As for me, I pretty much collect everything. I see behind you are a bunch of action figures. I love action figures. I love toys. I love models. I collect sports cards, and I can go down a rabbit hole very quickly if I'm on, on like an auction website, and I can get interested in almost anything very quickly. So that's the unfortunate side of collecting, right? Is like, for me, is that I just get interested in stuff, and I kind of start researching it on eBay, and then start looking. It's just a bad rabbit hole that I get down into sometimes.
You're
For my favorite comic books, um, I'm not a super high grade chaser. I know
Sure.
that there are people that only collect 9.8, slab graded stuff, and you collect how you want. But my two most cherished comic books are probably an Avengers 1.8 number one, signed by Stan Lee, and also an X-Men 2.0 number one, signed by Stan Lee. I got them both personally signed by Stan Lee. So those will probably always remain in my collection. And it's funny because sometimes I'll get a table at a con, and those two particular ones, I put a like a quote unquote I don't want to sell price on them,
Sure.
and a couple times people have come close to meeting that. So now I need to like
Got to up
up
it.
that price.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
like, hold on. Like, a
yeah,
little bit more.
yeah, yep,
As collectors ourselves, Andrew, we are very guilty of that strategy. So
Yeah.
it's
yeah.
a brilliant one, actually. So
Well, not so brilliant when someone is ready to
True.
plop down that amount, and you're like, oh
right.
wow, that wasn't such a great strategy. But those two I want to keep kind of forever.
Sure.
Um, they're not worth a lot in terms of grade wise, but they're worth a lot in terms of meaning to me. But yeah, I mean, Lawrence?
Yeah, I've been collecting since I was in college, and I don't know what I don't know, maybe just the allure of, back in the day when I was in college, it was like, oh, X-Men was cool, and just like it was just like a side hobby. I didn't think of much at the time, and then like, picked up one, became like 10, and then like you get the box, and then I moved to China for 10 years, and then I stopped collecting, and I was like, "Oh, okay," and then pandemic hit. I'm like, oh, this would be a great time, just collect and start collecting again. And man, I don't know. Now I've got, according to my database, I got over 10,000 comics. I'm like, oh,
Gee,
and it's
yeah.
like, I was like, oh, this is, and thank God my wife is so patient and wonderful about it. But I collect original art. I collect the action figures. I actually have a storage unit for all the action figures, like transformable stuff. Because when I grew up, I was just such a huge nut for Transformers. That's why I was a mechanical engineer and love robotics. But I think the most expensive ones I have are the first Iron Man, and I think I have a 4.5 X-Men #1. But my most cherished ones, I got to tell you, I really love Spider Gwen, and I think she's like the new modern Wonder Woman. If you think about it in a ways, just I'm not sure why, but just Spider Gwen does something in terms of like her strength, her vulnerability, and whatnot. So for me, you know, some of my best comics I have is just Spider Gwen, and I like her as a character and whatnot. So yeah, I've got a bunch of great Rose Besh, pink commissions that I got from her, and a couple other stuff that John Gang's done some fantastic work as well. Got a shout out to my boy John. But yeah, just the artists have been wonderful. Alan Qua's wonderful. Just yeah, the community and the artists make it even harder for me to detach myself, if that makes sense,
Sure.
right? And so because there's just really great people. Jeff mentioned Dan's team. Dan's team does it because everyone loves his family feel. I've heard that comment so many times, and Dan's just been wonderful from that perspective. So, yeah, the community itself, just that's why we wanted to give back, because it's like in the days, like when you go get your signature or a sketch, you're like, I don't want to just put in a top loader, and that's one of the biggest reasons when Andrew and I and with the rest of the team, we kept iterating the product. We'll give you a funny side note. Whereas there are over 100 revisions on the original Comic Capsule, just because we just kept tinkering with it, and just like, hey, so the engineer Eric Johansson, who couldn't be with us today, but his revision control number is like 125 or something on the original Comic Capsule.
Wow.
And in addition to that, we're continuing to make it better. So it's not like we're just sitting down like everyone loves it, and we're kind of satisfied with that. We want to make it better and just keep improving, and we really do believe in innovation. So
See, and that's something that I'll say. Working in industries before, where whether it's a computer software system or something, they always had someone or a team, and they had never dealt with the product or sold the thing and or collected the thing. And that's what I was passionate about too, is the fact that Lawrence and Andrew were both collectors themselves. So it was like they knew the troubles that collectors had. It wasn't just like some random, business guy went, "Oh, I should do this," and had no idea.
so
So,
yeah, sorry, Jeff, finish what you were
oh,
saying.
you're fine.
When Lawrence and I were first, kicking the ball around with this, and we're like, yeah, well, what if no one likes it? And we're like, yeah, we have enough comics that we can use them all. And like, so
You're like, yeah, but we like it. So.
yeah, so and that's all that really matters. And
Right.
but all jokes aside, it's like, when you're really passionate about something and you really love something, like the way we love comic books, it's a little sad in a way, but like we really love them.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say jokingly, sometimes I feel like I like them more than my kids. Completely joking aside, just kidding.
Do you need me to edit that out? I don't know if your kids are going to watch this one.
It depends on the context, right?
Yeah.
No, well, I think that's cool. Is all you guys have these stories that are personal. Whether Jeff, it's your comic books blowing up on you, or Andrew talking about, and that's something that was my first impression of it, is that idea of being between. I don't just want a bag and board, but maybe I don't want to vacuum seal it and get it graded. So I think those are specific things that you wouldn't really think of unless you were a collector. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's like, with that experience, I think makes it really cool that you guys have those stories, but then also are like, what can we do to make this for collectors? I think that to us said a lot about the product and what makes it really appealing.
So in the beginning, I think like we were thinking like the marketing would be to try to hit that zone between bag and board and encapsulation. I've now kind of personally, I have now adjusted my barometer for that to to include everything beyond bag and board. So, in other words, I have some really expensive comic books that I just don't want to get them encapsulated because I want to actually take them out sometimes and enjoy them and read them. So, uh, you know, my argument before was like, buy a comic capsule for anything between this amount and that amount, and grade all the other ones. I've kind of adjusted my thought process on that. Like, no, I have comics that are worth thousands of dollars in comic capsules, and I'm fine with that because I want to pull them out sometimes, and the displayability of them, they're beautiful on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, honestly, there's almost no benefit that I can think of in encapsulating something besides the securitization of it, right? So the encapsulating standardizes it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it like an even playing field. Like, I can tell you a comic book is near mint, but you might feel that it's very fine. Encapsulation kind of standardizes that. When you don't need that, like I don't need that. Like I said, I have some really beautiful Silver Age comic books that are currently sitting in comic capsules because I love them so much, and I don't want to entomb them. And
Mm-hmm.
collect how you want, but my mindset on that has changed.
Yeah, that's a very interesting take. I think, because I agree. If I was gonna have, and it'd be hard for me because I'm like, if I have something valuable, I want to like prove and like get it to be the most valuable. But at the same time, like reading something like an Avengers 1 or a first appearance of somebody, it's like I could read it on my Marvel Unlimited app, but at the same time, holding the pages of that original comic would, like, I honestly don't love older comics very much, but those kind of things I feel like would just like, you would feel that you just wouldn't get that feeling from like a digital book or something, So you want to keep that. And we always kind of joke about smelling our action figures, but there's a smell to an old comic that you like to get too, and you're not going to get that when it gets encapsulated.
Agreed.
It's touching history, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, when you think about comics, it's cultural, it's artistic, it's historical, it's all those things combined, and that's why we all come back to this hobby, right? Is because it has that so much intersection of those things, and now it's more universal languages, and in terms of like tales and uniting society in terms of like it's universal. I mean, so it's all those things that combined, and that's why you can't. Digital's great, but you can't smell it, like you
Right.
said, Dakota, right? So
Same thing. Like you think of, I mean, I was a huge movie fan, so I had all sorts of DVDs and all that stuff. Like all that stuff's going to the wayside. But this is one, collectibles is still one of the few things that people actually want to be able to hold and touch and
Mm.
feel.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's kind of that way. Another thing I was telling Andrew and Lawrence is, that I don't know how much you guys know with coffin comics with like Lady Death and stuff. I think there's a huge market, and I've tried to talk to some of the artists that are a part of that because they do a lot of the time they'll do what's called a jeweled edition, and they have a person that actually goes in and puts jewels on the cover. You can't encapsulate those,
Mm-hmm.
and so I have one that I got just because I thought it was kind of cool, and I did that, and I'm like, I've shown some other hardcore like Lady Death and that Coffin Comics people this. I'm like, look at this. You can do this, and you can still read it, and you can still
Mhm.
touch, feel the jewels. I mean, it's something, it's
Mhm.
protected. So,
Yeah,
it's another one that I think a lot of people don't realize too. So,
for sure. So going back to the origins of Comic Capsule, how did you guys get this group started? Because I know there's like some of the pieces on the bio, but like getting the original guys together and then growing to what it is now.
I'll take this one.
Hmm.
Mad kudos to Andrew. He inspired everything. Andrew is actually the proud creative comic cloak. And when I saw that product, I was like, "Oh, that's so awesome!" And I was like, "Hey, I'm glad someone's doing something like this." And then we actually have another product that we're still working on right now that we can't talk about. But it was like, hey, how do we utilize this? And then as we came around, it's like, I told the guys one day, it's like, guys, with all respect to the comic cloak, I really hate this top loader. and it was Andrew, because of his artistic. Andrew, if you don't know, runs an actual art studio, and he used to teach class in New York, so he's a true artist in every sense of the word. I grabbed my friends, who Eric Johansson and I have known each other since 2000. He's a wonderful mechanical engineer, and I knew him from my days when I worked early in my career. And then I grabbed Joe, who's our, who's I've worked with since 2005. And I was like, I need someone who knows how to design. I need to know someone who can do the supply chain side. And we have Andrew and I, who are the resident experts. And so that's how we got the four of us together and started Board Boys. And it was just one of these things where it's like a lot of people have these ideas, and a lot of people have come to us and say, "Hey, I wish I had this idea," but it takes the right combination of people to
Mm.
unlock it and give it to the world. And so I just happened, through my experiences of product development, have to know these people and sort of like convince them to come along for this ride. And and that's how we have this product. I mean, so for us, it's a combination of our experiences, our ambitions, and just people that wanted to try out and get this group together. And so everyone's agreed, and that's how the board board is formed. A huge shout out to Puff, who's our marketing person. She's in Malaysia, but she's been wonderful. And if you get bombarded by Instagram ads, that's because Puff's been awesome at it, and of
Yeah,
course Jeff as well. So she keeps us on board. We meet twice a week, for an hour, and just go over stuff and keep progressing on the current product and then future products as well. So that's how we're able to keep the momentum going. And so there's more stuff coming along the way. So
cool. So how big is the team now?
just six,
Okay,
Jeff, Puff, and this us four. So
okay,
that's it.
nice.
Yeah.
And then you had mentioned some product or a new product that you can't talk about, which is kind of one of my questions, which you don't have to go specifics, but like, what are some other areas that you'd like to explore? Because like, I mean, with action figures, I've seen some people want to do like with retro cards specifically, they want to put those in protectors. Um, if you're
Well,
or
uh,
cards, things
I'll
like that.
Yeah, cards is a lot of people in that market right now, and
Hmm.
the most immediate screaming need is silver, and so because we still want to service the community of the comic community, we're really working hard on that. We're trying to shoot for something late summer, early fall, to get the silver community taken care of. We're trying to we're looking down the roadmap for gold magazine. We hear it all. We love the fans feedback. So all your fans here, let us know. We'll keep looking. We'll keep applying the patent. We're in patent filing right now, so we're looking at anything we can apply this to that makes sense. We're just trying to keep this going for the community right now. So silver is the one most urgent. And then golden magazines coming. People even ask treasury, which is a huge size. Just we'll keep trying and doing it as long as we can think it's profitable and we can make this community better. And if we don't have to necessarily make a profit on it. We just need to get enough to recoup the cost,
Right.
from that perspective. So we'll keep doing what we can for the community, and we're putting everything back into investment for new tech and new products. So we're not keeping anything right now. We're reinvesting back into the business, 100%. So
Very cool.
Andrew, did I miss anything?
Yeah.
Well said. No, that was very good.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I think you hit all the bases. It's just funny, just to give you a little bit of color on our weekly or biweekly, or not biweekly, twice weekly meetings, is that it really sometimes is such a fun, just a brainstorming session. Like, because we all have different experiences, and someone will kind of bring up, hey, so I was at the local comic shop this week, and how come X doesn't exist? And we're like, huh, how come X doesn't exist? And then like we'll kick it around, and kind of um, pyramid ideas on top of each other, and so that's how kind of the roadmap can sometimes evolve. Or sometimes we'll say, oh yeah, kind of like what Lauren said, with the card market, like it's so saturated. We're not looking to really make a killing. We want to make innovative products that are useful to people, useful to us, stuff that we love, and that hopefully other people can love. And it's funny because we get to read a lot of the feedback that um, buyers, consumers um, make about our product, and the overwhelming response is that they're thankful, and we're even more thankful for the the buyers, and for the feedback. So it's been mutually beneficial for us and the consumer collector.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned that it was a lot of like trial and error. You had over 100 like tweaks and things that you made to the product. What were some of those challenges kind of going from conception to what we see today? Like how long did that all take, and any insight you have there?
A lot. It took us almost about a year. I would conservatively say. I mean, you know, we 3D printed it 3 times, and we still didn't like it. I mean, the hardest part was getting the hook in. I know that sounds really weird because it's just like a hole in the back, but getting the tool made and so that it doesn't flash improperly, so you didn't see these weird lines that you sometimes see in other plastic products. I mean, we 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 kicked that around a lot. What's the thickness? Fitting in a short box was my criteria because I didn't want it not to fit in a short box. Some of the products out there don't fit in a short box, and like, no, we
Mm-hmm.
have to fit in a short box. We talked to some people like, oh, it has to be bag and board. And so just everything is like, I really wanted the title or a label space area, so we fought hard for that. So every little bit nuanced thing, like corner protection, like the little rounded corners, everything was really just fought over. But the hardest one was the last one that we had to solve was the pocket in the back so you could hang it. And so we had a lot of design considerations. Do you the tool, do you in the front or the back, and how thick do you need to put it, because people are like, oh, I can't fit this thick comic in. Well, it's not made to be, because then you're penalizing everyone for a thick comic book, right? And
Mm-hmm.
a short box can fit about 100 or 150-ish or so, and you can fit about 49 comic capsule in a short box. But it's still one of these things where like but you can find it instantaneously, and that's what I
Mm-hmm.
wanted, in terms of like as a collector. One of the other things is, now that we've introduced to the market, there's so many other ways people collect that I didn't even think about collecting, honestly, right? And so everyone collects their own way, and it's natural. And but when we were collecting, this is the things that we wanted, or we wanted the way to identify, we wanted to display it, we wanted it to be UV, we wanted these certain things that could fit in short boxes, we wanted it stackable, because so all these things we just fought over continuously on how do you make it stackable, how do you assemble it together, what's the right way to assemble it. So all these different things permeate over time, and you can only get so much after a 2-hour weekly meeting. But we iterated, and everyone's got their day jobs, and so it just took some time to get to that final spot. So
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I would specifically say like if yeah, I think everybody has OCD about something. Like this is like it checked all the boxes, right, Lawrence? I mean, I mean that in a good way. It's not bad, but I mean it's like you think it's something you're like, gosh, I wish I had this and I wish I had this. I mean, while we're still continuing to evolve it, it's like, the back of my brain, my OCD, it's like, okay, yeah, I got this because I can see, because I hate when I can't find something, like Lawrence said, but it's like it fits in the box because, one time you'll have the comic that's too big or too small, and you're like, it shakes around. It's just like it's everything. And our meetings, like I love it because to me, you know, with the way society is today, I think we've lost the family thing. And to me, our meetings are kind of like our family, Sunday family dinner or something. I mean, it's a business thing, but it's like a family dinner. Like we're all like, "Oh, hey guys, how was your week?" or "How was your week been since, the last time we met?" And it's just like it's, a nice feeling.
Yeah.
Not so business where we're all just like, "Oh, yeah, we have to go to this meeting again." Like.
Yeah.
In addition to what Lawrence just mentioned in terms of just the different iterations, there is a like an amalgam of design ideas, but you need to temper that with
Mm.
engineering. And that's the part that Eric, infused uh, into the team that we need to consider always, right? Is like something off by 1 degree changes a lot.
Mm.
So like, so there is a lot of back and forth and a lot of design and engineering give and take in a product design.
And supply chain. So that's why Joe comes in. So Eric and Joe have this side dialogue all the time, like, "Hey, if we do this, this is what we have to do to the tool. This is what it means for manufacturing yield. This is what it looks for quality wise." So it sounds simple, but there's a lot of interplay in terms of the
Sure.
system dynamic. So
There are a lot of moving
yeah, there's a
parts.
lot
Yeah.
of moving parts. So it's not Eric makes something up, talks about something, Joe responds. Joe brings something up, Eric responds. And we're all just talking about it like what's the trade-off? Do we want this or that? And so it was that's why you had 100 iterations, honestly.
Mm.
Because we kept fighting over those little details to make it a little bit better every time. So
Yep.
And with 100 different, like each time is, you got to tweak something or you get it and you're like, not quite, not quite. Like that's probably fine for the first 10, and then after 50, like does that ever get disheartening, or you're like, all right, this probably just isn't going to work, we're in over our heads, or you're like, we're almost there, we got this.
I don't think so. I think with each iteration you get closer to something, right?
Okay.
So it could be incrementally improving or drastically improving, but just as long as you're constantly improving, that's all you can ask for. And there was never really the sacrifice of, oh man, this is the 75th iteration. Let's just launch it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no, we didn't want to do that. We didn't want to shortchange ourselves, and let alone the community in general. So we wouldn't take less. Just like now, we if we find something that we want to improve on, we'll research it and we'll put it in a CAD to make sure the structural integrity is still good and or better. So we are constantly trying to make it better, design wise and engineering wise.
yeah, Eric's not here, but Eric is one of the reasons we have Eric on the team is he's an absolute perfectionist, and he'll like run the FMEA, which is failure modes effects analysis, and say, okay, if we make this 2 inches 2 millimeters thicker, this is the failure point, or do we want to
Mm.
round it or do something else, and then it becomes a different failure mechanism. And so we do a lot of that in the CAD and just running it, and then that provides more information and we retweak it. So yeah, that's why we never felt like it was a burden, I guess, Dakota, to answer your question, just because we only get one shot to make a first impression, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we kept in our minds. Like once we get it out there, we don't want a lot of like, man, I wish we had this, or man, this product really sucks. That was never the goal. So we went. That's why we had 100 and something, and we just like, okay, let's just keep going. We're almost there. And so, we knew we were close when we figure out the blast hook piece, and then it was just fine tuning it from there. And Eric and Joe did the magic mostly to make sure that we got it to the finish line. So
Awesome. And then, so with all of the different features to it, how did you guys kind of, I mean, like, I know you guys are collectors yourselves, but like having the like relief corners and the hanging portion, the flip tops, UV protection, because like UV protection was kind of one that I was like, oh, I didn't even like consider that would be important. But then thinking about it, I'm like, actually, that's really important. So like, how did you guys kind of all put your heads together on like, these are the features we want? And then was there any features that you had to like leave out just for, it's just like, that's just too crazy to try this with this first product? Anything like that?
I guess I could start on that, and Lawrence, Jeff, kind of jump in. But for me, um, it was all about what was out there, right? So, you take a compilation of what's out there, what's nice about them, what is not so nice about them, and how can we make it better? So that those are my driving forces.
yeah, to answer your question, and I'll just add on to Andrew is like we really looked at, there's two ways to look at this. You can call it a top loader on steroids, or you can call it an encapsulation with a lot of value.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, you look at it from both sides, and because if you look at all the faux slabs pieces, we offer that almost that same value, but at a much cheaper price. And so that's why we have this when we did the marketing thing, and I because just because that's my background, I was like, this is where we got to get those features at this price point, and then it makes the most sense, right? So that's how some people will look at it as a top loader with a lot of features. But if you look at reverse, it's like all this faux slaps, but with a really great value,
Yeah.
right? So, and that's how we sort of hammered on it. And every time we were like, that's why the hanging piece was one of the last features we added. But it was like, we can't go in there without this, because that's something that I see people doing with those other products, and we need to have it so that again we add more value compared to what other people are in the market space. And so that's how we sort of evolved it. um I'll be very frank with you, we wanted to, sometimes we debated about making it thicker, but like I said, it was just like, just didn't want to penalize other people. And so he
Sure.
was like, if there's a strong need for it, because there's the annuals and all the other pieces that are super thick. But it's like, if you think about it, it's one every 25 or one shots. And we wanted to get this out to the market first. And the people asked, did you ever regret not doing Silver Age first? I said no, because Silver Age is actually, to me, a lot of the heart of the collectors loves the Silver Age, and we made it so you could still fit Silver Age. But we wanted to learn from this product, and so that's what Andrew was talking about. Is like we're taking these learnings, and when we get to the silver release, we'll take those learnings and make it a little bit better product, right? And so we'll get there in terms of that, and we'll get there when there's more demand, and there's people that really are asking for this, and we'll get there. It's just going to be one step at a time. And there's, unfortunately, we had to just make those some sacrifices on the thicknesses. There's other things, but you know I wish we could introduce more colors early on, but we wanted to test it, and we get some market feedback on the colors, and so that's why we released black. We trying to plan out what the next color should be. We've gotten some good feedback there too. But every collector is different, and that's what we're learning about this product as it evolves. So
Very cool. All right, gentlemen. Well, I don't want to take up your entire evening, but is there anything that we didn't ask that you want to make sure that you share with us, or any final parting thoughts that you want to leave the listeners with?
well, I just want to say thank you to you guys and the community. Honestly, um, I definitely think beyond our expectations where this product has been well received. I know there's more collectors out there on the fence, and we've gotten some feedback like, oh, this is not exactly what I wanted, which is fine. Like I said, everyone has their own way of collecting, but general thank you to the community, the artists, everyone who's been supporting our product. It's small ways to say thank you, and you guys here at the Strong Collectors, thank you for having us on. We really appreciate letting us use your platform to have this, and least we could do is say thank you for everyone who's been supporting our product.
Yeah, and additionally, I think the four in this day and age, the four key points of this community, I think, are collectors, the artists, retailers, and influencers. And we are super grateful that, it's been literally by all four of those groups. And it's going to sound corny, but it really is heartwarming. Like, you go to a con and, an artist has a bunch of comic capsules on their table and they're displaying their, original sketch covers on there, and retailers are ordering them in large quantities, and you see them on the shelf, and it's like, oh my goodness, like, we made that. Like, it's such a cool feeling. And when we're selling at cons, and people come up to the table and they're like, oh, you guys are the ones that make these, and I'm like, yeah. They're like, yeah, we this is our third time buying them, or this is my first time buying them. And it's funny because the response is so visceral, right? Like, when you have these in your hand, you really don't know how cool they are until you actually open one and put a comic book in. And that's like the common thread among all of those four groups, is they don't see how cool it is until they see how cool it is. So, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Lawrence and Jeff for breaking out theirs.
Yeah, they look hot.
Yeah. And the comics too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, even this, like the foil, I mean, it's almost so shiny, but the black just makes the foil look even better.
Yeah.
It frames it beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you all for joining us. If you are interested in purchasing a comic capsule, we will leave a link down below. And you can also there is time to go back and enter our giveaways. We still have 3 comic capsules to give away, so make sure you're entered to win those. And until next time, stay strong.